Trackers gonna live the nation, and Spectrum's got such supervision. Mask is a mighty power that could save the day. Mask, no one knows what lies behind the mask charade. Mask, always riding out on Venom's trail. Comes to the laser rays, fire away.
Hey everybody, it's Bill from Matt-Trakker.com and welcome to this episode of Behind the Mask. There's a couple different origin stories for Mask. There's one canon really that seems to be the one that everybody can kind of agree on with, Miles betraying Andy, Matt's brother. That's usually the one that people talk about when they talk about the origin of Mask, but there's an actual, pretty cool history lesson that it revolves around how Mask, came about, and it's never really talked about. And the funny thing is that an entire episode was dedicated to this, episode 39, The Green Nightmare. And it starts back in the mid-50s with Matt and Andy's father, Andrew. He was traveling the world, and his plane crashed. And he was saved by a New Guinea Mudmen. And if you're looking it up today, I think it's pronounced Asaro, A-S-A-R-O. And the Mudmen, how they came about, they would hide in the river from their enemies, and they would kind of slather themselves in mud, but they wouldn't put it on their face because they believed that it was toxic, the mud and the water. So they would make these ornate masks out of whatever they could find, essentially. And you get a lot of, you can see where the dots are going here, right? You can connect them. And, the Mudmen, obviously there's the lore in the cartoon, but you also have the lore, in real life. And that's one of the cool things that Mask did with a lot of the stories, was he took real life things from history and tied it into their universe. A lot of really clever writers with the Mask universe there. So, how did Mask get their powers, right? Well, again, it goes back to this plane crash. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play a little clip from the beginning of Green Nightmare and just talk about that first, and then we can kind of dig into some other spots here. So let's take a look at this first clip.
So what you have in this scene here is you have Alex and Matt trying to put together this replica crystal, and what it'll end up doing in the end is it'll expose the fact that this is how the masks get their powers, and it'll lead to a little bit more of a backstory that we'll find out more about in a few minutes.
So you have this crystal that they were able to finally replicate, and they called it the Mask Crystal. And what you're going to find out is, well, this crystal has a lot more to do with Mask than you might think. So what we're going to see next is we're going to see just kind of how the coincidences took place that joined this tribe with Matt's father, how they were able to interact. It was almost kind of fate, essentially. But let's watch it here.
The man in the photo is Warago, and 30 years ago, Warago and my father saved each other's lives.
So what you have coming up is the backstory, essentially, of how Andrew and Warago kind of came to pass, and it occurred at, well, this accident here. you'll see that Matt, Andrew's plane crashed.
One thing I don't know about this tribe is I don't know if they were one of those ones that were kind of like a remote tribe where they hadn't seen other humans outside of, what they've seen. And there's still tribes out there that have no exposure to the modern world. So the one question I did have about all these origins here is, would a native tribesman here, would he run up to something that he's probably never seen before that was on fire to save somebody he's never met? It's just something to think about. I don't know if that would be the case or not, but I would like to think it would be. So as we keep going here, we see Orago is able to free Matt and is able to carry him to safety, but then you get that explosion that kind of knocks him out. Andrew gets up, sees that he's in some trouble, and what we have is an opportunity for us to think about something here. Think about the fact that if if Andrew didn't get up and carry him to safety, we might never have Mask, or if Orago never went over there to try to get him out of that plane, you might not ever have Mask. A lot of really good coincidences happening here to take account of. And as he nurses him back to health, eventually he's given the most precious item of his tribe, which is one of the Mask Stones. And that's how it came to be. The tribe didn't really understand the power that it had. And obviously Andrew did, and so did Matt. And eventually they were able to figure out that it could provide power for these masks. So without this backstory, you wouldn't have Mask as it is today. And you wouldn't really be able to kind of talk about it in this sense. You wouldn't be able to kind of like think about what could have been, because, well, it already happened. But think about the fact that if you got there a split second too late, or if that plane, if Andrew left him there to after it exploded, if Andrew left him there to die, he wouldn't have gotten that crystal. A lot of good coincidences lined up, but again, it's a story that nobody really talks about. And I'm curious to know if you've heard this before, if you remember it at all, if you have your own backstory that you like to talk about, something that you might have made up yourself. I'm always curious to hear what your thoughts are. So until next time, this is Bill from Matt-Trakker.com, and I'll talk to you later.
Spectrum's got such supervision.